too, but you can't do anything about it. So yeah, for the past now 18 years, yeah, time flies. I set up 18 years ago. I set up what we call the Danau Girang Field Centre, which is located in the Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary on the east coast of Sabah. I have actually some people here in the room who have been or are still working some, but we have here Tim, who was our operations manager. He resigned recently, but we have also Karisha, who did a PhD with me on crocodiles, and she's now our crocodile conservation officer, and she gave a talk, I think, 2-3 weeks ago here. So what I'm going to do today is to talk about the implementation of species action plans and the work that we have been doing since we launched those state action plans now about 5-6 years ago on very charismatic species like the proboscis monkey, the Bornean banteng, which is a wild cattle for those who don't know banteng, or tamadao, the Bornean elephant, the Sunda clouded leopard, and also orangutan, and recently the sun bear. And I'm going to talk about the work that we have been doing in order to implement those action plans on intelligence enforcement and also digital innovation. And just to locate the Kinabatangan, where we are working, it's on the east coast of Sabah. You have, this is here, this is the Kinabatangan floodplain. The Kinabatangan River is here. It's about 560 kilometers. And along the Kinabatangan was set up the Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary. So this is the state of the forest in 1982. The purple here was the start of all palm plantations. The red is what is now the sanctuary and some forest reserve. So now this is what we have. That is what is left of the forest in the Kinabatangan floodplain. All the pink is all palm plantation. So we work in a very in an area that is under a lot of stress. Wildlife there is under a lot of stress, and it's a great lab to study how wildlife is adapting to fragmentation. And what we are trying to do is to understand the responses of wildlife to human-driven landscape changes. And we started doing that back in 2008 when I set up the field center. The field center is co-managed by the Sabah Wildlife Department. The lowest Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary is under the jurisdiction of the Sabah Wildlife Department, together with Cardiff University. When I set up the center, I was a staff at Cardiff University, and I'm still a staff at Cardiff University. Now I'm a professor at Cardiff University, and so Cardiff was involved in the setting up of the center. It was built by the Sabah Wildlife Department as an education center back in the late 1990s, but it was never really used. So it was falling apart. And when I was doing some field work along the Kinabatangan back in 2000, 2001, I found out about this building, for example, and a couple of other buildings on the shore of an oxbow lake here, which is now called Danau Girang. So I decided to set up a center together with the support of the Wildlife Department and also financial support from Cardiff University. And we have 3 major pillars at Danau Girang Field Centre. One is research, second one is education, and the third one is protection. So in terms of research, you have the big question here, understanding wildlife responses to human-driven landscape changes. We have worked on over 15 species, from proboscis monkey to estuarine crocodile, and Kerisha did a PhD on that. I had a student before her. Clouded leopard, sun bear, monitor lizard, pangolin, Malay civet, leopard cat, and many other species. And so we're trying to understand how they move in that kind of landscape. So for example, here you have the movement of 4 clouded leopards that were colored along the Kinabatangan. Danau Girang Field Centre is located somewhere here on the shore of Oxbow Lake in lot 6 of the sanctuary. So here you can see the movement of 1 clouded leopard, a male, the first male ever colored in Sabah, even crossing here the roads, the Sandakan-Lahadatu roads. And you can see that clouded leopard don't really like to go into old palm plantations. They really stay in the forest and use the corridors. And the other pillar is education. So we use all our research to educate the public, to educate children. So we have an educator. Here you have Clarisse. Clarisse started with me, like now she's been 12 years, and she's been our education officer, running all our education in Kota Kinabalu, but also in the country, including in very remote areas. We also train students, and here you have 2 senior wildlife officers who didn't go to university, and we help them financially to go to university. Here, some might recognize Silvia Alcisto, who was the director. She was running the Sepilok Orangutan Rehabilitation Center. She did a degree at UMS together with Usin Muin here, and they graduated after 3 years while they were still working, and now they became senior wildlife officers. And actually, Sylvia is the wildlife officer for the Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary, or Kinabatangan District. And finally, the third pillar is protection. And we have done a lot of work on protection. And I will go through mainly through that in that presentation. We supported the Sabah Forestry Department in the consolidating the Protect anti-poaching team, together with the support of the Sime Darby Foundation. And then we did many other things that I'm going to go through now. And one very important thing that we did and that we set up now 12 years ago is the Wildlife Health Genetic and Forensic Lab, which is supporting the Sabah Wildlife Department to prevent disease. And that's in collaboration with Conservation Medicine, which is an NGO set up in Peninsular Malaysia, but working also in Sabah. Preserve genetic resources, and that's what Danau Girang Field Centre is doing. We are doing a lot of genetic work on endangered species, but also fight wildlife crime. And we set up a forensic laboratory for the Sabah Wildlife Department in here. The lab is located in Potuki, next to very close to the Lokawi Wildlife Park. Okay? And I will talk a little bit about it. So what we, DGFC, what we really did is for about 10 to 12 years, we worked hard in collecting research data on different species. As I mentioned, the clouded leopard, proboscis monkey, banteng, elephant, etc. And from that, we transformed that research into actions. And we supported the Sabah Wildlife Department in drafting state action plans for some of those charismatic species, some of those totally protected species. Sylvia, for example, was part of many of the workshops that we organized to stakeholders workshop to inform us about the issues. And so we came up after that with state action plans. And I was very instrumental in drafting those state action plans that were most of them were launched around 2018, 2019, and they are still running. And one of the issues that those species are facing is poaching and wildlife crime, wildlife trafficking. Wildlife crime is the fourth most lucrative form of organized crime in the planet, after drugs, weapons, and human trafficking. And so understanding wildlife crime is extremely important. And there is a mechanism in wildlife crime that goes from recruitment and preparation, recruitment of poachers, of also middlemen. Then there is the poaching itself, the harvesting of wildlife in the wild, and we know a lot about that. We know we have a lot of information. There are organizations like Traffic that works on that and collect data about this. Then there is an intermediate passage through the middleman or domestic market. Then there's a passage through regional middlemen or international traders. And then intermediate passage through a middleman or domestic market. So you have trade within Sabah, but you have also trade between Sabah and Thailand and Peninsula Malaysia and Cambodia and China and Indonesia. And so that's where the distribution and the commercial availability is coming. And so what we don't know, and that's where I need my glasses or get a bit closer, is what we lack is data on the demand side and the structure of the groups that are involved, which is basically intelligence. Who are these guys who are actually, the kingpin, who are driving this crime? And very often it's related to human trafficking, drug trafficking, weapon trafficking. It's all linked. It's all the same people. It's all the same gangs, most of the time. And a few numbers. It is a very lucrative crime. $23 billion every year. $200 million per year in trophy hunting. That's everywhere. It's not only Sabah. This is worldwide, okay? But 3% of the fees are actually reaching local communities. One of the big reasons that people are saying, we are doing trophy hunting so that it goes back to the community, that's bullshit. It doesn't happen. So only 3% of those fees are going back to the local community. The rest is going to the kingpin or, to organizations. So now let's go back to the Sabah context and the wildlife enforcement. So you know this place, some of you, okay? United Kingdom. So this is Sabah, a total area of 7,360,000 hectares. And the areas under the Sabah Wildlife Department make 70,000 hectares. It's basically the Lower Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary, Tabin Wildlife Reserve, and a few other small areas, including the marine area, the Sugud Islands Marine Conservation Area. To manage those places, they have only 60 staff. Only recently, enforcement staff was increased to about 300 with the RK, the rangers, the community rangers, through funding from the federal government. Those guys are part-time, they are not really well trained, and so the funding is usually allocated for 1 year. So maybe next year they will stop. So there is no real continuity. And then they have only 2 prosecutors for the Wildlife Department, potentially 4. There are a couple that are being trained, The director of the wildlife department can also prosecute, but he's very busy with all of the tasks. So we have only 2 prosecutors. So this is the context in Sabah. So, in that context, DGFC decided to support the wildlife department. And we were instrumental in having those plans published on the banteng, proboscis monkey, clouded leopard, and later on the Bornean elephant. There was also one on orangutan, and most recently we launched the sun bear plan. Workshops, stakeholder workshops happened in 2017. And one of the activity or action that we put in those plans was to increase the capacities of wildlife law enforcement, government agencies, and of key partners in conservation. Train crime analysts, investigators, and intelligence gatherers, and also a certified forensic technician at the Sabah Wildlife Health Genetic and Forensic Laboratory. Only with that, you can really fight wildlife crime. So we decided to work on that. And what we did back in 2019, we applied to the US Department of State, to the US government, for a project called Boosting Enforcement and Forensic Capacity to Deter Wildlife Trafficking in Sabah. That was supposed to be a 2-year project, but you can see when we started, 2019, what happened in 2020? COVID, exactly. So although we had COVID, we still managed to run the project. It was very difficult, but the state government, the United States government, really liked what we did in 2019, 2020, and decided to extend with our grant to double the amount. And so we run the program for 4 years, and it was then extended also for another 6 months at no cost. And so the goals of the project was to reduce, the main goal was to reduce wildlife trade and improve arrest and prosecution rates of wildlife crimes in Sabah through the development of specialized teams that will work closely with relevant agencies and stakeholders. Bear in mind that those teams were not, they were not existing before, okay? Generating and disseminating key intelligence information, and also handling and processing DNA evidence to expedite the resolution of wildlife trafficking cases. Before, the Sabah Wildlife Department, when they had any case that requires DNA identification, like for example bushmeat, identify the species, whether it's a pangolin or if it's a banteng or beef, they had to send the samples to Perilitan, to the peninsula, Malaysia, to do the analysis. Usually it was taking 6 months, 7 months. So you can imagine for prosecution, it's really hard. And they had to send also an officer to go with the samples to KL and then come back. So it was taking a long time. So we wanted to change that. And then after those 4.5 years, the US Department of State told us, we like what you've done. Give us a proposal and you will be the only one who will be able to apply to that proposal. So we did, and we came up with a new project that we are currently running called SHIELD, Sabah's Harmonized Intelligence, Enforcement and Legal Defense Against Wildlife Crimes. This is running at the moment. So in red, this is what we added for that project. We wanted to try to enhance interagency cooperation, so working between Sabah Wildlife Department, Sabah Forestry Department, Sabah Parks, Sabah Fisheries, the MCMC, Malaysian Anti-Corruption, the police, the platoon, the army, the marine police, everything. We are working with all these agencies, and we set up a network. Another thing that was requested by the director of the Wildlife Department is to strengthen the governance and change the department and how it's run and how we can run the department better, because it has been like that since 1985 when it was set up. So we are working now with the Institute for Development Studies, IDS, try to come up with kind of change how the Wildlife Department is currently working. And finally, tailored training for prosecution officers and members of the judiciary. It's very important to train our prosecutors, but also the judges. Tell them how important an elephant is, because elephant attract tourists. If you kill an elephant, you kill the business. You kill Sabah. Sabah relies on its wildlife, so it has a cost. So we need to train the judiciary with that. What happened obviously early this year with Donald Trump, who came in power, who froze everything, all funding for wildlife, anything to do with wildlife, with climate change, biodiversity, and everything. Frozen for 3 months. For 3 months, we couldn't do anything. Thanks God, after 3 months, they say, okay, you can restart the project. But we can still stop you because it's still under kind of review. In August, they told us, well, listen, if you don't hear from us by end of September, it should be okay. So now we've been a little bit over a year in the project, and it seems that we will be able to continue and finish the project, but we still don't know officially. So yeah, that's the downside of working with the current US government. However, I have to say that without that funding, we wouldn't have been able to do what I would show you. So what are the achievements of what we call the INL project? Because it's under the Bureau of Narcotics and International Affairs. So we built investigative and enforcement capacity within the Sabah Wildlife Department. We set up an intelligence unit. We run 56 cases. We have now set up an intelligence database. And also we did pilot use of real-time camera traps, guardians, audiomorphs, and smart. And I will have a special section on that, about innovation and about technology. We also enhanced interagency cooperation. We did 45 training sessions, 15 meetings or visits, 2 workshops, 2 conferences with all these agencies. Overall, we had 206 participants, 19 different government agencies. You can imagine, how to put those agencies in the same room and get them to work together, including also NGOs. And then we have also the wildlife crime, how do you call it? There is a Wildlife Crime Bureau that was set up, and then there's the Wildlife Crime Intelligence Committee. And that's 21 agencies, mostly from Sabah. But it also includes Perilitan. We work very closely because wildlife trafficking happens, there's no borders. Happens with Peninsular Malaysia, but also with Thailand, etc. So we work with the US Fish and Wildlife as well, Justice for Wildlife Commission, all these organizations. And then the last one was to support the Wildlife Health Genetic and Forensic Laboratory to conduct forensic work. It was not existing before this project, but we established a forensic unit. And they dealt with 62 cases so far. When I call cases, it's pangolin meat, pangolin scales, sun bear bile, elephant ivory, banteng meat, all these cases, and they have to go through that. we got the lab accredited, and also we trained 2 forensic scientists. One that we trained was one of our staff member, and then now she moved to the Sabah Wildlife Department. She's a wildlife officer and she's running the lab now. And the other one is our forensic officer. And they work together. So that was a big move in terms of, you know, fighting wildlife poaching and crime. Yeah. Another thing that I'm very proud of is the rapid response team. Following helping the forestry department setting up their protect team, they had enough. They had all, because Sam Darby Foundation wanted to continue supporting, but the forestry say we have 50 now, 50 rangers. This is enough. And then I say, why don't we do that for the wildlife department? And the Sam Darby Foundation say, yeah, why not? And we set up the rapid response team. The team is targeted to react to wildlife crimes. So it works very closely with the intelligence unit. Intelligence unit, they are undercover. You can't see their face. The criminals cannot see them. So what they do, they collect the information. When they have enough information, they give it to the wildlife department director, and then the wildlife department director decide, okay, I'm sending the rapid response team. I'm sending my rangers, sending the police, and sometimes the army to go and arrest those poachers or criminals. So the idea was to increase the capacity and effectiveness of the wildlife department in rapidly responding to wildlife poaching. So we trained and supported 3 teams that work closely with the Sabah Wildlife Department intelligence unit.
Just a quick question. What do Simon Darby do? Do they train you or just do they fund you?
They just provide the money. We did the rest. We organize all the trainings, but they provide the money. And without that, we wouldn't do anything. And just something, the 3 state action plans that you saw, that I put the pictures, the Banteng, proboscis monkey, and Sudan clouded leopard, were all funded, those were projects funded by the Sam Darby Foundation. Yeah. Sam Darby Foundation has been amazing for supporting. I know it's Old Palm. It's a foundation that has been set up by Sam Darby, which is a planter, but they have a fantastic CSR program. So to go back to RRT, remember that I told you that we had the wildlife department has two protected areas that they are in charge of: the Kinabatangan Wildlife Sanctuary and the Tabin Wildlife Reserve. So we set up one team in the Kinabatangan, one team in Tabin, and then we have one team that is based in KK. KK, they respond to alerts received on wildlife crime offenses. Anything online, there's a lot of trade happening online, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. They respond to the tasks that are directed through the Sabah Wildlife Department enforcement information. They also work in other areas than Kinabatangan and Tabin. They work Nabawan, Sapulud, they go on the west coast, Kudat, etc. And then when the intelligence unit has enough information, those guys can be sent to go for arrest. They also go in the market, KK market. They work on illegal restaurants, selling meat, selling pangolin meat, going to some of our beautiful hotels in Sabah, picking them up in a minivan, sending them in a house in one of your neighborhoods that they rent for a week or 2. Then they prepare some pangolin meat, serve it to Chinese tourists, send back the Chinese tourists to the hotel. That's it. So intelligence unit is working on that. Rapid response team is arresting those guys. And for Kinabatangan and Tabin, they conduct long-range patrolling in the forest. They look for signs, evidence of wildlife-related crimes. They're also in charge of deployment and maintenance of the real-time monitoring systems that I will talk a little bit later. They also respond to alerts that are produced by those real-time monitoring systems. And they also respond to tasks directed through the Wildlife Department enforcement information cycle. And they also provide feedback. They are in the feedback all the relevant information to the intelligence unit. And so far, it's been extremely successful. As of December 2025, we have one commander. He's running the whole team and 13 rangers. Initially, we had one commander, one assistant commander, and 15 rangers. So there were 17. After 3 years, still with 14. Two left for. One is still working with the Wildlife Department, running the UNDP project on Banteng. One went to work for another government department. And yeah, another one as well. These guys, they are going to be integrated after the end of the project because the salaries were paid by the Sabah Wildlife Foundation. At the end of the project, they are being integrated in the Sabah Wildlife Department. RRT will continue after the Sabah Wildlife Foundation funds stop. They went through 3 months intensive training that we organized in Tabin Wildlife Reserve. They are all honorary wildlife warden. They can arrest criminals. They train in first aid and forest rescue, tree climbing to set up real-time cameras, for example, self-defense in combative fight, and counter-poaching operations. One thing that they are not armed. These guys are not armed. If they go on very dangerous operations, they go with the police usually, or with the forestry, who are armed. So in 2.5 years, 3 years, a bit less than 3 years, they carried out 213 operations. They arrested criminals for 61 cases. Mostly those cases are turtle eggs, pangolin scales, sun bear parts, and they also removed hundreds of snares in the forest. But there seems to be no end to this. Traffickers are very clever. They diversify the routes and the modes of delivery. Now they use Facebook, they use Instagram, they use, the bus. Just, give some money to the driver. Oh, can you transport this to there? No control. There is a lot of money laundering. They target also new species. The online crime is getting bigger and bigger now. They also change their sourcing methods, and then there is the economic need and the socio-behavioral pressure. Some people don't have enough money to feed their children. So those are the poachers, the ones that are at the end of the chain, and sometimes the middlemen as well. So there is this economic need for these guys to go and get. Some do it for the money, but they don't really need it. They have jobs and everything. So, and some are doing that also for fun. So because of all those changes, we actually work on another project with an organization called TRACE, which is the Wildlife Forensics Network. That involves the forensic lab. And that project was also funded by the US Department of State in collaboration with us, and to improve wildlife seizure management and DNA analysis to increase the effectiveness of investigations in Southeast Asia. That project just ended at the end of last year, and it was to improve wildlife law enforcement in Laos, Malaysia, and Thailand through the implementation of wildlife seizure management systems and also expansion of wildlife DNA forensic capacity, including the delivery of intelligence derived from DNA mapping analysis. So our forensic officers were involved in this project, and they were trained. And I'm going to give you an example of the importance of forensic. I don't know if some of you remember those two big cases of pangolin seizures in Sepanggar, the port. So there was an investigative question, which was, what is it? That's important for prosecution. You need to know what is in those bags, what was in those bags. So you need to identify the species. So they worked on the two cases, and they analyzed 218 samples taken from those bags, from the first seizure and 117 from the second seizure. And you can see that the pangolin species had been identified, and most of the pangolin that they were found in those bags, that was in Sabah, were white-bellied pangolin, which is from Africa. Giant pangolin from Africa. Black-bellied pangolin from Africa. Okay? So that's for prosecution. We need to be able to show that it's a pangolin. Because in Sabah, if you kill a pangolin, you go to jail. And you have a big fine. So we need to know that. Now, what is also important to do is, where did it come from? That's the intelligence part. Prosecution, they don't care. But the intelligence part, because what you want to do is try to understand the traffic. How does it work? Where is it coming from? Who is running this? So you know what the species is, but you want to know where those species are coming and assign them to populations. And with genetics, you can do that. So we work on the white-bellied pangolin geographic origin for the intelligence use. And you can see that you had different origins for both seizures. Most of the pangolins the white-bellied pangolin were coming from Western Central Africa, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Northeast Gabon. Some were coming from Gabon, here only, and then some were coming from Togo, Benin, Nigeria, and a little bit from Ghana. So that's the genetics that provides you that. And then you can understand a bit better about the trade, how this is happening, the route as well. And so now we can do that in our lab. Each time we have a seizure. There's an example. There was someone in the market who was selling bear bile. Okay? It was corked. We analyzed the bear bile, and it happened that it was pig bile. So the guy was selling people some bear bile. Yes, because pig, you need a permit, for example, and yeah, he was prosecuted, definitely. Yeah. So I hope that you could see a little bit the importance of the work that we have done. Very, very often you have these beautiful plans that are published, and they sit on a shelf. And we didn't want that. And we really wanted to help the government to implement those plans. That's why we came up with the INNL project and the SHIELD project, the RRT and PROTECT teams, and then the TRACE project to really increase the capacities of wildlife law enforcement of government agencies. And in this case, mostly Sabah Wildlife Department, because we have been working for over 20 years with the Sabah Wildlife Department. Our office is at the Sabah Wildlife Department HQ. And we trained crime analysts. We train investigators, intelligence gatherers, and also we train forensic officers that can run the lab. So now we need to consolidate the actions and we need to improve also our intelligence, the way we gather information. So I don't know if I have time. Yeah? I'm still okay? I'm going to try to be a bit fast on that. So during those projects, we tried to use technology. And you can see the results of this survey. I don't know if it's me, it's probably my eyes, but it looks blurred. But anyway. So you can see that during that survey, organizations were asked about the use of those different technologies like satellite imagery, drones, GIS patrol systems, aerial surveys, etc. And you can see that some of those techniques were essential in detecting wildlife poaching. I'm going to go through a few of those technologies that we used in our project. And the idea was to conduct pilot testing. So we work with an organization called Wildlife Protection Solutions with real-time camera trap. We also work with rainforest connection using audio device, like audio muffs, and also I will show you something called Guardians. And then we also work with platforms like Smart. That's an app that is used by a lot of anti-poaching units. Protect is using it, WWF, the Rapid Response Team. And then also with a platform called Earth Rangers, where we can look at movements of wildlife, for example, colored elephants, etc. So in terms of visual-based monitoring system, we try to use real-time cameras. And we set up cameras along the Kinabatangan River in the forest or at tributaries, for example. And the challenges that we faced was to where to deploy those cameras. You need to find the right areas to deploy them. We also need tree climbing skills. And I have here someone with skills. So Timothy, for example, was trained for tree climbing, and he took part in this project when he was our operations manager. And you need also a dedicated team, and that's why we train all the rapid response team rangers so that they can also climb trees, so that they can set up cameras. You can imagine that if you put a real-time camera 1 meter above ground, if a poacher is passing there, the first thing that you will do is take it out. So the best location is in a tree. Another challenge is the inconsistent network. When you work in a place like Tabin Wildlife Reserve, very remote, there is no network. And most of those cameras, they need network. So that's an issue. Solar power is not always suitable because, you work on the canopy. So power can be a problem. And then one of the biggest problems actually is wildlife, because they destroy the cameras. When they see something like that, on the tree, you can imagine macaques, orangutans, they think it's a toy, and they easily destroy those. So we need to invent, things like that, like cages or things to put our cameras. And then the final challenge is to analyze the data. Imagine the amount of pictures that we get, or videos that we get. So we need to retrieve the data manually, especially when the network fails, because some of those data, remote sensing cameras, for example, they send that straight to a base. So you get the alert. But sometimes the network doesn't work, and you need to go and retrieve the data. You also need a systematic approach to manage the data. It's a lot of information. So AI is, for example, helping. But also you need a dedicated data manager and an analyst. You need people to go through those data. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. So you need a team, and obviously having a team is costly. Then there is we tested also audio-based monitoring system. Something called Guardian. That was developed by Rainforest Connection. It is satellite-based. It needs solar power to charge the batteries. It has a radius of up to 1,500 meters, so it can catch a sound up to 1,500 meters. It uses also AI to recognize chainsaws, gunshots, dogs, barking dogs, vehicles, and it's also send real-time alerts. So basically, you set up your Guardian. This is a Guardian. You set it up usually on the top of a tree. Okay, it gets sounds like the sound of a chainsaw or a gunshot, so potentially from a hunter, and then it connects by GSM or satellite, and it transmits the signal to the Guardian cloud platform. And the Guardian cloud platform then sends the real-time alert to a person that is responsible, wildlife enforcer, or, based in an office. And then you can have immediate intervention when it works. You can send a team straight, like the rapid response team, to be waiting for the hunter or the illegal logger, or to go out on the site, to find the logs, etc. So it looks amazing, right? But there are some challenges. First, the deployment. You need to climb in a tree. Look at that. I mean, the height, you have to put that very high. It's not a very suitable design. Have you seen the design? I mean, if you look at that. Oh, no, sorry. How do you come back? No. Look at the design. Shiny, metallic, in a forest. Yeah, right? So what you get is that wildlife playing with it. Orangutans, they can destroy that in no time. They have also wires, red wires. It obviously attracts wildlife. What's that? So you also need to train AI for gunshots. That was the issue. We had to train the AI. And also there is not enough power to overcome long periods of cloudy days. And in a rainforest, you have cloudy days. So we completely abandoned the Guardians. And it's quite expensive also. But what we did is we worked with Audiomorph. So it's an autonomous recording unit. It's an acoustic logger. It's very small, see? You can put that in a if you want to protect it from wildlife, we use, those small mammal traps. And you can put them on a tree, attach it on a tree, or even on the ground. It's powered by batteries, so obviously you need to go and change the batteries. And then you need to also go and collect the data. It's stored on SD card. And then you go and collect the SD card, go back to your office, and then you can get all those sounds. So it's obviously not real time, so it's not interesting to catch someone. But where it's very interesting, and we have used it for that, it's mostly to have hotspots. So those audiomorphs, we record gunshots, logging, illegal logging, barking dogs, vehicles, etc. And you get that, you get the date, when you have it. So that's very interesting. The problem is that the amount of data is just crazy. It's a lot of data. And so it takes a lot of time to analyze. And you also need manpower for the deployment. and the retrieval. So you still need to send a team to collect that information. Can be damaged by wildlife, but we find some tricks, like this to protect them. But it's still a very interesting tool, especially to, for example, to know about activities and at which time of the day. So here you have some noises that come. I can't remember what kind of noise, but at certain time of the day. So you have, intensity of some noises here. So it allowed us to have hotspots of activities, you see, like those. Then we can direct our enforcement there, because we know there are activities there, whether it's illegal logging or poaching, etc. So if we, for example, get a lot of within 2 weeks, we get a lot of gunshots, we know that poaching is happening there, and we can send a team to be there. So that's a very good tool for that. Then you can use some apps like Smart. It's used for spatial monitoring and reporting tool. So your rangers can travel. You can use on a smartphone. You need a smartphone, but now everybody has a smartphone, including rangers. So they can download the app, and it's very easy to use. And you provide a lot of information. It collects also GPS waypoints. It do the tracking in the forest, so you can follow also your routes in the forest. You can attach photographs or also audio recordings, and you can enter the team information, and then it's centralized in the database. You centralize that in the database. You can have your paths also put on the maps. For example, here this is Tabin Wildlife Reserve, and these guys went on a patrol, and then they saw an elephant there, or footprints, or they saw a snare, and so it's all recorded in the system. And that's excellent for intelligence as well. So we need people to and it can also generate reports for you, for your rangers. So it's very important tool. And then you can link that to other applications as well. And then finally, there's Earth Ranger. It's a software, free you can use it freely, and you can use it for real-time camera traps. You can put also smart data from patrols. You can put the guardians if it works. And you can also use that with satellite colored animals. So we use it a lot with our elephants. We have about 30, 40 elephants colored in Sabah. And so they are all on the map. And we can track them real time. So that's very important. If we see an elephant that is not moving or hasn't moved for a day or two, then we can send a team. And you probably heard all the elephants that were killed the past year by ivory trafficker. The intelligence unit is actually working on that case. So this is the new normal for fighting wildlife poaching and trafficking. You need a base, you need an HQ, you need an operation room with screens. On your screens, you have the movement of your animals, you have the movements of your teams, your rangers, and that's going to be the new normal, and that's what's going to be the next step. We want to, for the rapid response team, this is the kind of thing that we want to set up. So we're working on it. I don't know if anyone heard about the black mambas. No one? Black mambas the snakes. Okay, yeah, of course. But the black mambas is an anti-poaching team that was set up in South Africa in Kruger National Park to fight against rhino poaching. And it was set up, and it's an only female team, only female unit. They have done a fantastic job. No rhinos have been poached in the area where they work. They work with the local community. They're all from the local community. And I met them in two of their members when I was in Wyoming in October for a conference, and I want to bring them here. And I want also to send some of our rapid response team rangers there also to learn. And this is what they have. You know, they have this operation room where they have all the rhinos on the screen looking at the movements and all their patrolling team. So this is what we want to reach for Sabah. Thank you. I hope I haven't been too long. If you have any questions or